Daniel's chains of regret. As Daniel lay in the darkness of the dungeon, his mind drifted back to the events that had led him to this wretched place. The memories came in flashes, sharp and painful, each one a dagger twisting in his heart. He remembered the moment his family had discovered his relationship with Arya. It had been a night like any other, the moon high and full, casting a silvery glow over the grand estate where his family resided. He had thought they were safe, that their love could remain hidden from the prying eyes of his kin. But secrets never stayed hidden for long in a house filled with vampires. He had been returning from a clandestine meeting with Arya, her kiss still warm on his lips, when he had walked into the drawing room and found them waiting. His father, a towering figure with eyes like cold steel, stood at the center, flanked by his brothers and sisters. Their expressions were a mix of fury and disgust. Daniel, his father's voice had been a low, menacing growl. "What have you done?" The confrontation had been swift and brutal. His family's disapproval, always simmering beneath the surface, erupted into open hostility. They accused him of betraying their kind, of endangering their very existence by consorting with a human. His protests, his declarations of love for Arya, were met with derision and scorn. "She is beneath you," his eldest brother had sneered. "A mere mortal, you have shamed us all." Daniel had tried to explain, to make them understand, that his love for Arya was real, that it transcended their differences. But his words fell on deaf ears. The argument escalated, voices rising in anger, until his father, his face twisted with rage, had made the final decision. "Chain him," his father had ordered, his voice cold and final. "He will learn the price of his folly." Daniel's heart had pounded with fear and disbelief as his brothers had seized him, their grips like iron. He had fought against them, but it was futile. They were too strong, their determination unwavering. He had been dragged through the halls of the estate, his pleas for mercy ignored, and thrown into the cold, dark dungeon beneath the house. The dungeon was a place of nightmares, a claustrophobic chamber designed to break even the strongest will. The air was damp and musty, filled with the scent of mildew and decay. The stone walls, slick with moisture, closed in around him, their oppressive weight a constant reminder of his imprisonment. The chains that bound him were heavy and unforgiving, their cold metal biting into his wrists and ankles. Each movement sent a jolt of pain through his body. The weight of the chains a physical manifestation of his family's betrayal. The floor was hard and unyielding, offering no comfort, no respite from his suffering. Days and nights blurred together in the dungeon. The passage of time marked only by the intermittent visits of the guards who brought him meager rations of food and water. The isolation was maddening, the silence oppressive, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. The darkness was absolute, a suffocating blanket that seemed to close in around him, pressing down on his chest, making it hard to breathe. In the solitude of the dungeon, Daniel's thoughts turned again and again to Arya. Her face, her voice, her laughter, these were the memories that sustained him, that kept him from losing himself completely to despair. But they were also a source of unending pain, a reminder of what he had lost. He recalled the nights they had spent together, hidden away from the world, their love a secret they had guarded fiercely. He remembered the way she had looked at him, her eyes filled with trust and devotion, and the way her touch had sent shivers down his spine. He had promised her a future, a life together. And now that promise lay shattered, buried beneath the weight of his family's cruelty. As the days dragged on, the conditions of the dungeon took their toll. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, his body growing weaker with each passing day. The cold seeped into his bones, his muscles aching from the constant strain of the chains. Sleep was a fleeting escape, plagued by nightmares and the ever-present fear of what awaited him. But the worst torment was the knowledge that Arya was gone, lost to a fate he had been powerless to prevent. The guilt and grief were a constant, gnawing presence, eating away at his resolve. He had failed her, had let the darkness take her, and now he was paying the price for his hubris. In the depths of the dungeon, Daniel's suffering was complete. The physical pain, the isolation, the relentless torment of his memories, these were his companions. His punishment for daring to love someone his family had deemed unworthy. He was a prisoner not just of the dungeon, but of his own heart. The chains of his guilt and sorrow binding him as tightly as the iron manacles around his wrists. And so he lay in the darkness, his spirit crushed, his body broken, a shadow of the person he had once been. The dungeon walls closed in around him, a relentless reminder of his suffering. As he faced an eternity of torment, haunted by the ghosts of his past and the love he had lost.